It asks you to trust a process where the work comes first and the results show up later. What you're experiencing does not automatically mean something is wrong or that progress isn't happening. You're doing something difficult and you're still in it. Are you ready to get back to what you love after knee replacement? The Total Knee Success Podcast is your trusted guide with practical tips, evidence-based strategies, and no fluff. It's not personal medical advice, just solid education to help you manage pain, regain mobility, and get back to living the life you love. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Total Knee Success Podcast. I'm Michelle. If you're listening today and thinking, a few weeks ago, I felt like I was improving faster than I am now, I want you to know you're not alone. Many people reach a point or a few points during the healing process and wonder the same things you may be wondering now. When progress becomes more difficult to see, it's common for uncertainty to grow, for the hard work you've been doing to feel more demanding, and for confidence to start to waver. That reaction is common, and it does not mean that anything has gone wrong. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why this phase feels different and what's likely happening in your body. In the early weeks after knee replacement, changes often feel noticeable. Swelling goes down, pain eases, you start bending your knee more. Walking looks a little less awkward. Every week brings a visible change, and those changes are motivating. They reassure you that the surgery worked and that your effort is paying off. Doing well during this early stretch is not easy, and if you made it through that part, you did something genuinely challenging and did it well. Then, somewhere after that early stretch, the tone shifts. The knee doesn't feel worse, but it doesn't feel noticeably better either. Progress becomes harder to point to. Improvements show up subtly, if at all. And that's usually the moment when doubt starts creeping in. People tell me they start wondering if they've done something wrong, if they should be pushing harder, if they waited too long to have the surgery, if this is as good as it's going to get. This experience is not a plateau in the way most people think of the word. It's not failure. It's not stagnation. It's a predictable transition from fast early change to slower, deeper adaptation. What changed in the early weeks is different from what your body is being asked to do now. In the first phase after surgery, a lot of improvement comes from things settling down. Swelling decreases, pain sensitivity changes, inflammation eases a bit. Your nervous system stops guarding as aggressively. When those factors improve, movement often looks and feels dramatically better, even before true strength or endurance have returned. That early momentum can feel reassuring, but it's important to recognize that much of it comes from settling after surgical stress, not long-term capacity building. As Winston Churchill famously said, if you're going through HE double hockey sticks, keep going. That idea applies here because what comes next asks for persistence rather than quick wins. The phase you're likely in now is different. The work your body is doing now is slower, less visible, and harder to measure. Muscle strength takes time to rebuild, especially after a period of inhibition. Tendons adapt gradually. Joint capsules respond to sustained repeated low loading, not quick wins. If you want a clearer sense of how long these deeper changes typically take, Episode 33 walks through common healing timelines in more detail. That broader timeline helps put this moment into context because many of the most important changes are subtle and cumulative. Neuromuscular coordination refines itself through thousands of repetitions, not dramatic weekly leaps. None of these systems improve in straight lines. One of the biggest reasons people interpret this phase as a plateau is that the markers they were using earlier no longer change in obvious ways. Early on, pain scores drop. Range of motion numbers climb. Swelling measurements shrink. Later, these metrics stabilize, even though adaptation is still happening underneath. This is where measurement becomes part of the problem. When the only signs of progress you trust are no longer moving, it's easy to conclude that progress has stopped. But progress hasn't stopped. The work has shifted. Surface improvement often slows during this period, even while deeper capacity is still developing. Another layer to this experience comes from medical milestones. Being told you're cleared can feel like crossing a finish line. Appointments become less frequent, external reassurance fades, and suddenly responsibility shifts more heavily onto you without the regular confirmation that you're on track. That transition alone can create an emotional letdown, even when things are progressing normally. That shift helps explain why the signals you rely on no longer tell the full story. Less pain during this phase does not automatically mean more capacity. Pain is a poor proxy for strength, endurance, and control. Many people interpret the absence of pain as a signal that they should be able to do more faster. When the body doesn't match that expectation, frustration can grow. What's actually happening is that your knee is asking for consistency, not intensity, repetition, not proof, time under load, not dramatic breakthroughs. If you compare weeks 2 through 6 with months 3 through 6, you are comparing two entirely different biological jobs. Early on, the job is settling. Later on, the job is building. And building is slower. It's also easier to miss. And because it's easier to miss, it's easier to misinterpret. This is why so many people disengage during this phase, even though they're doing nothing wrong. They mistake the absence of obvious change for the absence of progress. Staying engaged here means continuing regular manageable activity because research shows that people who stay consistent over time tend to regain more function than those who cycle between pushing hard and pulling back. One example comes from a study by Duong and colleagues that followed people after total knee replacement who were enrolled in a step count-based activity program. The researchers found that long-term improvement was not driven by short bursts of high effort or rapid increases in activity. Instead, people who were able to maintain regular participation over time showed better functional outcomes than those whose activity levels fluctuated. In other words, steady follow-through supported continued improvement, while alternating between overdoing it and backing off made progress harder to sustain. One of the challenges here is that people tend to drift toward one of two extremes. Some put intense pressure on themselves to recover faster than their tissues can support. They push harder, add more, and judge themselves harshly when their knee does not respond the way they expect. Others pull back too much. They protect, delay, and wait for motivation or confidence to arrive before they act. Both responses are understandable and both can slow progress in different ways. Research after knee replacement shows wide variation in postoperative trajectories, even when people follow similar rehabilitation plans. Large cohort studies following patients for months to a year after surgery consistently show that progress does not move in a straight line. Work led by Minnick and colleagues tracked outcomes across more than 12,000 people after total knee arthroplasty, and they showed that meaningful functional improvement often continues well beyond the early postoperative window, even when short-term progress slows. Similarly, longitudinal analyses summarized by Orange and colleagues demonstrate that most gains in physical function occur over months, not weeks, and that temporary slowdowns are common and expected parts of the process rather than signs of failure. Studies examining walking speed and functional performance after total knee arthroplasty add another important layer. Research using trajectory analysis shows that people who appear to improve quickly early on are not guaranteed a better long-term outcome, and people who improve more gradually often catch up over time. Early gains in speed or strength simply do not predict where someone will land at 6 months or a year. So if you notice early gains, that's encouraging. If things slow down, that's okay. And if progress feels difficult at the start, this experience alone does not tell you where you'll ultimately land. Many people who start more slowly continue to make meaningful gains over time. On the other hand of the spectrum, pushing harder is not always better. When people respond to slower progress by sharply increasing intensity, they're more likely to experience symptom flares, frustration, and periods of disengagement. That pattern can interrupt participation and make it harder for the knee to adapt. Adherence research after total knee arthroplasty also shows that consistency is more important than perfection. People who keep moving, keep practicing, and keep showing up for the work, even when improvement isn't clear week to week, tend to regain more function than those who oscillate between pushing too hard and stopping altogether. In rehabilitation, this pattern is often described as a boom or bust cycle, where periods of overdoing it are followed by flare-ups, setbacks, or complete pullback. Over time, that cycle can be more limiting than helpful because it interrupts consistency and makes it harder for the knee to adapt steadily. If this part of the process feels challenging, that makes sense. It asks for patience when patience is hard. It asks for effort without immediate feedback. It asks you to trust a process where the work comes first and the results show up later. What you're experiencing does not automatically mean something is wrong or that progress isn't happening. You're doing something difficult and you're still in it. Strength builds through progressive repetition, which is why staying engaged over time supports real change. Taken together, this pattern helps explain why this stretch feels the way it does for so many people. If you're unsure whether your progress is on track or whether what you're feeling falls within what's expected for you, this is the right time to talk with your physical therapist or surgeon. They can help you understand whether your progress matches typical patterns, whether anything needs to be adjusted, or whether staying the course is exactly what your knee needs right now. Sometimes that conversation confirms that nothing needs to change. Other times, it helps identify small, specific adjustments that can help restart momentum. What matters is that this guidance is personal. Your therapist and surgeon know your history, your exam findings, and your goals. This podcast is educational and is designed to help you understand common patterns and principles after knee replacement, and it's not to replace individualized medical advice. Decisions about your care, your activity level, and your progression should always be made in partnership with your own healthcare providers. If you're preparing for knee replacement and want a clear, grounded way to build on what you're learning here and use the weeks before surgery to set yourself up for a smoother recovery, my upcoming book, The Total Knee Replacement Game Plan, walks you through exactly how to do that. It's educational in nature and meant to complement your learning and not replace the guidance of your healthcare team. We discuss how to go into surgery informed, not overwhelmed. You can click the link in the show notes to get notified when the book is released. In the next episode, episode 46, How to Keep Moving Forward When Progress Feels Slower, we'll build on this conversation by focusing on how to stay engaged without chasing perfection, even when improvement isn't obvious. And remember, what many people think of as a plateau is often not a plateau at all. It's the middle stretch where the work continues even when the signals are harder to see. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Michelle, and this has been the Total Knee Success Podcast. This podcast is for educational purposes only. Discover more at totalkneesuccess.com and be sure to subscribe and share because every step forward takes you closer to living the life you love.